Twitter users ID status. And then I also authenticate, and then it makes sure that dzuelke can update dzuelke, which of course is true because I own my Twitter account. And theoretically, Koichi could theoretically give permission to post on his Twitter page. And then I would post as dzuelke, I would post to Twitter users Mugeso statuses. And it would allow it. Destroy, same problem again. Why can I not just delete? Oh, and you can send a delete to this, or you can send a post to this. So it allows two verbs for the same operation, which is also not a good idea. Because maybe at some point you want to extend the interface or so, and it's a dead end street. You can't change anything anymore. Just delete the number, the status ID. Status 12345, delete, done. Retweets again. Who can tell me what the correct URL should be? Can anyone try? This is all the retweets of one posting. All the retweets of a tweet I made is that thing. So tweet number 785932 has all the retweets. You can either use a query, yes, or that. Query would also work. So you could say the statuses with a query show retweets or something. The only problem with that is that like this it shows one tweet, and like this it shows many tweets. So a query has that problem. All of a sudden with a query string you would have a lot of tweets and not just one in the response. So this might be a better idea. And here again, to post this posts a retweet. Their API is completely confusing. When you just read the URL, you don't even understand what it is doing. They even have the retweets collection here. They have retweets, but to make a new retweet, they don't use this. Why not? See, because we have retweets, so why can't we just say, create a new retweet by doing this? Post to the retweets of a status. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that would be a nice URL, and that would be a nice interface. Oh, and yeah. So 2 things for versioning. What if you have version 1 of your API and version 2 of your API? API.twitter.com I don't like, because from an HTTP perspective, these two are different resources. I understand Twitter's motivation behind this. They probably want to separate traffic for API and website. So that's why they have different host names. So that is okay. But /1 and /2 in the URL for versioning is not a good idea. Instead, a client should ask for a specific version. He can say, I accept vendor com Twitter API plus XML or so. You know, again, the hypermedia format, because they need their own anyway. They have meanings with relations. You can query a Twitter profile, and then it will give you a link to all the tweets of the user. So either this, or v1 plus XML, and that's how you do versioning. So you had v1, v2, v3. Most people prefer that. I think you could also do this. You know, in the same way as when you have a web page, you have content type, text HTML, semicolon, char set, UTF-8. You could say char set, you could say foo bar. This is parameters to a media type. They're allowed. So you could also say semicolon version 2. the problem is that in theory, ver1 and ver2 are the same media type because it's just a parameter. So officially, this would not be a new media type. So a client only knows how to handle this without the version. So that is a problem. So that's why most people recommend that you use this .v1, .v2 or so. And then a client sends accept application vendor com Twitter API v1, and then the server knows, oh, old client, I will send him back v1. If the client says I know v1 and v2, we can send a newer version of the interface back. And you know how I talked about you can just theoretically you should be allowed to just add a new link with rel payment. Done. If it doesn't break the interface, you can do that. If you change your API so much that existing clients will break, then you need a new version. And then the URL is the same. And because this is in the content type header, when you in your response, caches will automatically cache all the versions, and so that's the power of HTTP. Some further reading. How I explained REST to my wife is super cool. It's a 2-page conversation with a guy he really has. Yeah, Ryan Tomoyako. It's also translated to many languages, including Japanese. So this also has Japanese translation. This is also really interesting. It uses Starbucks as an example, or the coffee ordering process as and modeled as a REST interface. That's a really great way to learn building REST interfaces. And this is Fielding's original dissertation. So thank you. Let's do this.
質問とか、若干なら大丈夫なんで、俺今聞きたいっていう方います？すみません、僕が聞きたい。メディアタイプでの指定って結構もう普通に行われてるんですか？そもそもそこが分かってなかったんですけど。
Is that already used commonly by given by media type?
Custom media types, you mean?
Yeah.
No. The main reason is that people don't know that. Who of you has used CouchDB? Anyone? No? Okay. Who has used Amazon S3? Amazon S3 for storage? So, you know how you can store anything in Amazon S3. You can store an image, a text file, a video, and Amazon S3 doesn't know that. It just stores a file for you. So S3 can never be a RESTful interface because the server doesn't know the meaning of the objects it is serving. And so if you have a very generic API like CouchDB, CouchDB just accepts JSON documents, and then it's like a MongoDB, just keys and values, arbitrary. So CouchDB will also always be only an HTTP interface with media type application JSON. It will never have hypermedia, because for that, the CouchDB server would have to understand all the link relations and everything, and it's not made for that. It's a database, right? But yeah, so most interfaces out there that say they are REST interfaces are really just HTTP interfaces, which is totally fine. Which is totally fine. There is a lot of REST evangelists and advocates out there who say you must use REST, you must use REST, and then